Hey, it's John, True Vintage Guitar. This is from 1970. It's a Gibson Les Paul Deluxe. And we're just barely sneaking this video in because it just sold this morning. I've got to pack it up and ship it out before 6 p.m. tonight, but I really wanted to make this video and show you guys this guitar because I was really stoked about it. It's kind of difficult to get stuff that says Les Paul on this channel because, you know, Les Pauls from the 50s and 60s are kind of hard to come by. But yeah, this is from the early 1970s, likely 1970. I'll go through that in a bit. But first, let's go through the history of the Les Paul because there's so many different versions and time periods and values, and I just wanted to kind of run through kind of where I'm coming up with this number because I think it's really important. So for this history, I'm pretty much going to stick with what we know as the Les Paul Standard because, you know, the Junior Special, TV, Standard, Custom, all that stuff is great, but let's start with the Standard. So in 1952, the first Les Paul comes out, and it's the Goldtop, and the actual name of it is Gibson Les Paul Model. And, you know, there were a couple changes throughout the 50s until 1957. It got those humbucking pickups. Then in 1958, the model changed to the Standard, so that's kind of what we think of as the Les Paul Standard. That's the Cherry Sunburst Humbuckers single cutaway guitar until 1960. That body style was discontinued in favor of the SG body style, but it was still called the Les Paul until about 1963. It was the Les Paul Standard with the SG body till 1963. That's when the Les Paul signature dropped from the model, and it was just the SG Standard. Then in 1968, Gibson reintroduced the Gibson Les Paul Standard, and it was actually a Goldtop with P90 pickups. It was not what we think of as the 1960 Gibson Les Paul Standard. So anyway, that's 1968. It's a Goldtop P90s. It wasn't until 1970 that the Les Paul Standard became the Les Paul Deluxe, and that was when they started using the mini humbucking pickups instead of the P90 pickups. More on why they use that later. There's a really cool book recommendation at the end of this video. I think you're going to dig it. But anyway, in 1970, Les Paul Standard becomes the Les Paul Deluxe. It was a gold top with mini humbucking pickups. It was not offered with the Cherry Sunburst finish. At least it was not in the price list with the Cherry Sunburst finish until about 1971. You'll remember that I called this a 1970. More on that in a bit. So then as the 70s go on, the Nashville plant opens in about 1975. The Les Pauls get the maple neck instead of the mahogany neck, and at that point they were kind of significantly different guitars. But this guitar is an original Kalamazoo factory-made Les Paul Deluxe. I believe it's from 1970, and it's got a lot of really cool, interesting early features that I guess, you know, not everything changed on January 1 of each year. The features kind of slowly came in and changed from different, you know, runs. So let's talk about why I called it a 1970. Dating these Les Paul Deluxes is actually very difficult because Gibson was still using the 6-digit serial number until about 1974 or 5, but they reused the serial numbers from the 60s, but they had a Made in USA stamp, so you can kind of differentiate them that way. But the serial numbers weren't consecutive, so you could have, you know, 339292 and then 129392, you know, a year after that one. So you really can't use those serial numbers to easily date these guitars. You kind of have to go by the features. So since we don't have the shipment logs to cross-reference the serial numbers, and maybe you do have access to those, and if you do, please leave me a comment below. Would love to check the serial number against the shipment logs, but those are kind of under lock and key, so I think that's unlikely. The next place I like to go on dating these guitars are the potentiometer codes, and that's the week that the potentiometer was manufactured. So it doesn't tell you exactly when the guitar was manufactured. You just know that if these potentiometers are original to the guitar, then the earliest it could be is, you know, a few weeks after that, because it takes a few weeks for the potentiometers to get from, you know, CTS all the way over to Gibson in Kalamazoo. So let's take a look at the potentiometer codes on this guitar. There they are. So, okay, these are potentiometers from 1966. So that's not really going to help us. There's a reason for that. You'll find leftover potentiometers from 1966 installed in both Gibson and Fender guitars up through the early 70s. So it's possible as they were grabbing the stock of new potentiometers to install in these guitars, last in, first out. So if they got kind of low on potentiometers, got to the bottom of the box, there could have been a couple-year-old potentiometers down there. That's one reason why it could be in there. Who really knows? But they do appear to be original. They've got the black Sprague capacitors, which are pretty cool. Those seem to change around 72 or so. So yeah, unfortunately, these potentiometers are not going to help us because this is definitely not from 1966. So the next place we're going to look is the neck on this guitar, because there were a couple of changes there. Number one, you've got the neck tenon and you've got the neck volute. The neck tenon is the part of the neck that extends into the body and connects to the body of the guitar. So until about 1969, it had a long tenon where the base of it kind of extended underneath the neck pickup cavity. Then around 69, they kind of shortened it to where you could see the end of the tenon in the neck pickup cavity, but it doesn't extend underneath the pickup. Then at about, 71 or so, they shortened the tenon all the way to the short tenon where you can't see the end of it in the neck pocket. Some people say the longer tenon, increases sustain or resonance, and, it's possible that's true. But it's cool to see the transitional tenon in this guitar because the vast majority of deluxes were not made with the transitional tenon. Here's a picture of it. You can see the end of the tenon in the neck pocket, but it doesn't extend all the way under the neck pickup. So that's definitely the transitional tenon. The next thing is the neck volute. See if I can show you it there. Boom, right here. So this is a small neck volute. It's not a large bump on the back of the neck. So that's also transitional as well. You seem to start seeing the volute in about 69 or 70, and it's small for a little bit and then becomes larger in about 71. Here's a couple examples of neck tenons. This first one is from 1968. It's an ES355 mono, very, very cool guitar. So you can see the base of that tenon extends under the neck pickup. Then the next one is this guitar, and you can kind of see the end of it there in the neck pocket. Then the third one here, we've got a 72 ES345, and you can't even see the neck tenon in the neck pickup pocket. So that would be the short tenon from 72. So that's pretty much how I arrived at the date 1970, but, you could call this guitar a 71 or a 72. All three would technically be correct unless you have the shipment logs that will actually tell us exactly when this guitar shipped. So next, I've got the book recommendation. Let me go get that book. All right, here's my book recommendation. It is The Modern Era of the Les Paul Legacy, 1968 to 2009. It's by Rob Lawrence, and I love this book. I also love the first edition of this book, which is the original Les Paul Legacy, 1952 to 1963. Both of these are great, but if you're interested in Les Paul Deluxes and late 60s Les Pauls and even 70s and 80s Les Pauls, this book has some awesome information that you won't really read anywhere else. Like, the coolest thing that I read in here is it was talking about why they started using mini humbucking pickups in the Les Paul Deluxe instead of P90 pickups or even full-size pickups like the Custom. And it actually had to do with the discontinuation of the Epiphone line. If you've been following my Instagram for a little while, which, by the way, if you're not, hit me up. It's at True Vintage Guitar on Instagram. Would love to follow you back. So if you do follow me, leave your Instagram below. I'll follow you back. But yeah, so the Epiphone brand was its own one family-owned American brand that competed with Gibson until Gibson purchased it in October of 1957. Then from about 58 to 1969, the Epiphone brand name guitars were manufactured in Kalamazoo, Michigan on the exact same line as all the Gibson guitars. And they were the same quality as well. They weren't lower quality or they weren't even cheaper. Most of them are usually a little bit more expensive than the Gibson counterpart. But Seth Lover, who designed the original humbucking pickup, designed the mini humbucking pickup after that, and he actually liked the mini humbucking pickup a little bit better, and that's what they were using in the Epiphone guitars. The Epiphone guitars with humbucking pickups, they were using mini humbucking pickups. So in 1969, with rising competition from overseas, Gibson decided to discontinue the Epiphone brand that's made in America and just start purchasing guitars made overseas and make Epiphone a budget brand. So it was not a budget brand until about 1970. But what happened was they had a lot of mini humbucking pickups left over because the line was now discontinued. So there was a cost-cutting move that decided, yeah, we need humbucking pickups in these Les Paul Deluxes, but we don't want to make all new pickups if we got this big stock of mini humbucking pickups. So, long story short, the 66 pots in this guitar, the pickups could have been made in 1966 as well and originally intended for an Epiphone model, but they ended up in this Les Paul Deluxe. But if you want cool information like that, I think you should pick up one of these books. It's a great read. There's a link in the description to an Amazon link that is an Amazon affiliate link, so you'll pay the exact same price on Amazon, but they'll toss me a couple cents if you pick one up. So full disclosure there. But I do have this book. I purchased it with my own money. I like it a lot. I think you're going to dig it too. So that's all I've got for you on this Les Paul Deluxe from about 1970. Do hit the subscribe button if you like vintage guitars. I'm going to be continuing to bring these videos to you. Guitar safaris, little restorations, that kind of stuff. I want to get some more amps on here. So yeah, hit the subscribe button. Really appreciate that if you do. Also, have you picked up a True Vintage Guitar t-shirt? They're very cool. They're black. It's got 3 printed logos on there. I think you're going to dig those. Link below. Check those out on the website. I've got to go ship this guitar. Thank you so much for watching. I'm John, TrueVintageGuitar.com. Thank you.